Hi there. Today we read chapter 9 of Enid Blyton's The Land of Far Beyond. In the last chapter, Miss Grumble chose to stay back a while to rest with sloth and laziness. So that leaves 7 in the group who are now at a castle that belongs to the Giant of Cruelty. What happens now? But before we continue, if you have landed here without watching the previous chapters, please start at chapter 1. Welcome to my space of make-believe. With just words we shall weave, places and people, adventures surreal. I am Tell a Story. This is an invitation to come with me. Chapter 9. Castle of Giant Cruelty. The giant and his page boy Fright. The poor prisoners. The travelers are forced to stay the night. Anna finds mercy and pity. The dungeons, escape through the tunnel of disgust, and the steps of tears. Everyone wanted to turn around and hurry away when they heard the name of the master of the big castle. Giant Cruelty? Mr. Doubt told us about him, said Anna, shivering, for she remembered the dreadful tales she had heard. Oh, Mr. Scornful, please let's go back to the path. We've come away from it again. Horrid things always happen if we do that. But it was too late. The great door swung shut, and when Mr. Scornful tried to open it, he could not. A loud voice called to them from a nearby room. "Who is there? Is that you, Rage? Where have you been?" "It is I, master," answered Rage, hurrying to the room. "Iron Wrath and Temper fell out with one another, and some passers-by brought us here. I know you like to see visitors, so we have asked them in. They would be glad of a meal." "Come in!" cried the loud voice of the giant. Rage and Temper pushed the little company into the big room, whose ceiling was so high that it could hardly be seen. The fire in the room was smoking, and the smoke hung above the ceiling and swirled around the big figure sitting on a kind of throne at the end of the room. The giant was enormous. He had cruel, grasping fingers and curiously small eyes that glinted spitefully as he looked down at the little company. He was dressed most magnificently. His lips were very thin and straight, and there was no kindness in him. At his feet sat a small, miserable-looking page boy called Fright. Cruelty kept him busy all day long, and now with a kick of his great foot, the giant sent him off to fetch something to eat and drink for the visitors. Even Mr. Scornful was afraid of the giant Cruelty. "He is such a powerful fellow," he said to poor Dick Cowardly, who was trembling like a jelly beside him. "It is said that he can make thousands, nay, millions of people unhappy once he uses his power. We must be careful not to offend him." Now when Fright brought back a tray of sandwiches, cakes, and milk for the travelers, there came a curious noise from somewhere outside the room. "Someone is crying and moaning," said Anna. The giant was rubbing his hands with pleasure. "Ah, that is one of my prisoners," he said. "How I love to hear that sound. It is music in my ears." "What? You love to hear someone in misery or pain?" cried Peter, thinking how easily the giant could capture them all and treat them wickedly. "Who is that crying?" said Anna uncomfortably. "I don't like it." "I told you it was one of my captives," said the giant, his spiteful eyes glittering. "I think it is the prisoner Misery, or it might be Poverty. They are always crying out, saying that I starve them." A loud scream made everyone jump. "Oh, that is Pain," said the giant with a laugh. "I keep him captive too. He amuses me." Peter felt cold all down his back to hear the giant say such cruel things. How awful to keep people prisoner and treat them so that they could cry out like that. He gazed at the giant with such dislike that he noticed it. "Ah, my boy, you don't like me when you meet me, but I have often been beside you in the City of Turmoil, and you did not know it. I laughed when you threw stones at animals and birds. I made merry when you struck someone smaller than yourself. I nearly cracked my sides when you stamped on frogs, and how I roared when you called unkind names after the poor blind woman who lived in the street next to you." Peter went pale. He remembered all those things. He had done them. He had been cruel too, and the giant had been by his side, invisible, and had enjoyed all that he, Peter, had done. The boy was filled with horror. Tears came into his eyes, and he turned his head away. The other children gazed at him. They too remembered spiteful, cruel things they had done, unthinkingly, and they were filled with horror and disgust when they remembered them. "How could we?" whispered Anna, quite unable to eat the cake she had taken. "How could we?" "Come and see my captives," said Cruelty. "I'll make them dance for you." "Oh, no, no," cried Anna. "I don't want to see misery and poverty and pain dancing for you. Leave the poor things alone. Set them free." "Well, I've plenty of others for you to see if you like," said the giant, grinning suddenly and showing a set of sharp, blackened teeth. "There's famine and starvation, and there's—" But the company had had enough of the giant. They rose up to go, Dick cowardly, trembling from head to foot. "We must say goodbye," said Mr. Scornful for once, speaking in a low voice. "Oh, no," said Cruelty. "Oh, no. You must spend the night with me, I beg of you. Fright, take them to the spare rooms and see that they are comfortable." It was not a bit of use trying to get away. The big door was fast shut. Rage, temper, and wrath stood beside it, looking very fierce. Fright led the travellers to two big rooms. One was Mr. Scornful and Dick, the other for the 5 children. Every one was afraid. "It's a pity that Cruelty is so very powerful," said Mr. Scornful to Dick. "He wields such a terrible power over everyone. Hardly anyone can withstand Cruelty." There were beds for everyone in the 2 rooms. Although it was not yet night, the travellers thought it best to lie down and rest, but there was not much rest for anyone in the giant's great castle. Cries and groans, sighs and moans filled the night, and at last Anna could stand it no longer. She got up and went to the door. She looked out. All was dark, save for the glimmer of a lantern set on a low wooden bench. She took it up. "I'm going to set some of these poor people free," thought the little girl bravely. "I just can't bear to hear them crying out like this." She went down a long passage and came to a door that led into a quiet room. Here she found 2 women, dressed in long robes, whispering together. They started when they saw her, and then pressed their fingers on their mouths to sign to her to be quiet. "Who are you?" asked Anna in surprise, for the women had sweet faces and kind eyes, surprising to see in the giant's castle. "I am Mercy, and this is my twin sister, Pity," said the first woman. "We come secretly at night to help the poor captives in their place. Cruelty knows nothing about us, so do not give us away. What is your name?" "I am called Anna," said the little girl. The 2 women looked at one another and smiled. "Do you know what your name means?" asked Mercy. "It means merciful, pitiful. So you must be a small cousin of ours. Did you creep here to see if you could help the captives in the night?" "Yes," said Anna. "I couldn't bear to hear their cries." "Go and wake your companions," said Pity. "If you do not escape tonight, you will be made prisoners yourselves tomorrow. Bring your friends here to us." Anna hurried quietly back to the bedrooms. She awoke the other 4 children, and Peter went to wake Mr. Scornful and Dick Cowardly. Silently, they all made their way down the passage to the little room where Mercy and Pity awaited them. "We shall have to take you by the dungeons where the captives are kept," whispered Pity, "but do not take their cries too much to heart, for we shall do our best tonight to help the prisoners, and maybe set 1 or 2 free." Nobody liked going down a flight of long, dark, damp steps into the dungeons. Mercy and Pity both had glowing lanterns to light the way. Anna would not look at the captives, who cried out piteously as the little company went by. "Oh, you will help them, won't you?" she asked Pity, taking the woman's hand. "You will help them." "We will," promised Pity. "We get money from many people in the world and spend it on things to give to the poor prisoners. The more help we get from others, the more we are able to do." "Oh, I will always give my money to help in future," said Anna. "I shall know that you and Mercy are spending it well." Even Mr. Scornful was most uncomfortable as he heard the sighs and groans in the dungeons. He put his fingers in his ears as he hurried by. Dick Cowardly was in such a state of fear that he could hardly walk. He kept imagining that he too was in the dungeons, a prisoner of giant cruelty, and it made him quite terrified. "How do we escape?" asked Peter, looking up into Mercy's sweet face. "We seem to be going down into the heart of the earth." "There is only one way of escape from cruelty," said Mercy. "I and Pity are the only ones who know it. It is through the tunnel of disgust, up the steps of tears, and out through the gate of kindness." That was a queer journey. The travelers went down, and at last came to a queer tunnel, narrow and evil-smelling. Slime was under their feet, and cold drops of water fell from the roof onto their heads. "Oh, how I do hate this place!" cried Patience. "How I hate the giant cruelty! Oh, those poor prisoners of his!" "I detest it all so much that I feel sick," said Mr. Scornful. "I am disgusted, filled with loathing and contempt to think that anyone should use their power to starve and torture other creatures." Everyone felt sick as they went through the tunnel of disgust. Everyone was filled with loathing. How they longed to be outside the horrible castle. The tunnel at last came to an end. A great flight of steps rose up from the door that led out of the tunnel. They were silvery and shining. "These are the steps of tears," said Mercy. "There are many to climb." "I'm glad to be out of that tunnel," said Anna. "I couldn't help hating and loathing that giant all the time I was walking in it. And now I feel so sorry for his captives that I want to cry." "I wish we could help them," said Lily, her eyes shining with tears. "I mean to do all I can when I hear of anyone in trouble in future," said Patience, going sturdily up the stairs. "I've been mean and spiteful, and cruel too, when I lived in the City of Turmoil, but now I am unhappy to think of people in misery." Everyone felt sad and made up their minds to do what they could, to be kind if they had the chance at any future time. Mr. Scornful blew his nose hard. He remembered many things that made him feel most uncomfortable. He remembered a little family he had ruined. He remembered a man whose job he had taken away. He remembered a beggar woman he had laughed at. They reached the top of the silvery steps at last. Mercy and Pity gazed round at the little company. What they saw in their faces pleased them. They led them to a small, well-oiled gate in the wall that surrounded the giant's grounds and swung it open. "Goodbye," said Mercy. "Remember us and help us when you can." "We always will," promised Anna, "and I won't forget what my name means. I am so pleased to know." "Goodbye," said Pity, and one by one the travelers passed through the gate of kindness and found themselves in the wood beside the giant's castle. It was dark. The stars shone out in the sky, but no moon. Nobody knew the right way to go to get onto the path. "We daren't stay here," said Mr. Scornful at last. "We may be taken prisoners again. Let us go deeper into the wood and sleep there. Then, when daylight comes, we can make our way safely back to the right path." So into the wood they went, found a patch of soft ground where pine needles made a bed for them, and lay down to go to sleep. The end of chapter 9. Good thing there was Pity and Mercy to help out, or that would have likely been the end of the journey. You think? Let's hope they find their way back to the narrow path that will take them to the City of Happiness. Hey, if you would like to read this book, search it up online as it is in the public domain. Otherwise, please join me in the next chapter. I would love to have you for company. Till the next time, go grab yourself a book, read, and let your imagination take you anywhere. Be anyone, and do anything. And do share your reads in the comments. Would love to know. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.